The tremors continue long after the last of my classes have ended. Although none of my students have commented on it, I've caught a few sharing anxious glances. Every time a pen slips from my hand or my shoulders tense whenever called. However unusual it must be for them to see the normally composed Miss Gales become a bundle of nerves. Even the most boisterous ones have given me less grief today. You'd think being on my 4th cup of tea would provide any sort of comfort. Ew, grass water. Or is it the 5th? Egad, why does counting matter now? The fact that I can't easily shake it off this time should tell me something. The last time this happened, I passed it off as some lapse on my part after having been sick the week before.
And it is a natural conclusion.
Those are just stories, a centuries-old lore passed by the locals to keep children in line. What place doesn't have those? One of my Dawes books even went as far as to describe them as a strong part of Isabella's culture. Tree giants, women who feed on unborn children straight from the mother's womb, or hell, there's even one story about a demon baby. All folklore that never had a smidgen of truth in it, most probably told to scare off the natives there back in the old days. Much like every other one in every other place. The world is more universal than people care to think. But looking at it from where I'm standing now, after staring straight into the eyes of that woman, after all the things I've been hearing and feeling, perhaps there's really more to that bloody letter than some awful Halloween prank. Really? Really? Now you think so? Now that it inconveniences you? It didn't matter when something bad was happening to your friend. Bitch.
Perhaps Isabella's right all along.
A terrible thing if true. Though that thought doesn't linger long, thankfully, because I'm a bitch. Soon the ringing of my mobile takes my attention away from it. An unfamiliar name flashes before me. Once the screen lights up and shows my brows knit together. Marianne McCullough. Staring hard at the screen, I try to remember where I've entered this person on my contact list. The library! It takes a moment, but when it clicks, my eyes zeroes in on the book lying wide open on my table. Loaned out from the library almost a week ago. I met with a woman there by sheer coincidence, a fellow history buff apparently. We were there after the same book, but in the end she'd given it to me under the condition that I call her once I'm done. To be honest, I completely forgot about it until now, and well, I haven't really even taken a peek at it until today. Normally I'd be done with the whole volume of this size a few days after taking out. About 1 or 2, depending on how busy I am. But finding a chance to sit down and read, though, has been more difficult lately than I anticipated. One moment I'm busy simply grading worksheets and attending a movie premiere, the next, then someone suddenly inviting me out for one reason or another. Days later, a friend stops showing up in her flat, right after worrying reports a pop-up in the local news. There simply isn't enough time to breathe and get a grip on things. I have been flipping through the pages of said book moments ago, though I never really read anything and merely hoping for a distraction. To no avail. My phone gives out another ring, and this time I do not hesitate to answer.
Marianne?
Hello! Here I was starting to wonder if it was a bad time to call. Is it?
No, not at all. I dismissed my last class a few minutes ago. I'm pretty much free for the rest of the afternoon. Unless something comes up. Is this about last time? The book?
Not really. I was hoping to ask you about some other thing.
Oh, sure. What about?
It's interesting. I didn't expect them to interact that much more after the library.
You grew up in this city, didn't you?
It's a peculiar question to ask someone you've just met, but I answer her nevertheless. I'm more curious whether she's heading with this by where she's heading with this by stating with that.
Born and raised, 3rd generation migrant. Why do you ask?
So, you must be familiar with the local lore. The, stories?
Quite. If I'm going to teach about history, I'd like to think I am, yeah? But a family friend would be a better person to ask. If you want, I can contact him for you.
No, let's just keep this thing between us, okay? It's nothing too big. Alright. I really don't know how else to put this without sounding a bit crazy. But things have been really, odd. Do you remember the mansion I mentioned back when we met? My current project?
Oh, you don't say. In hindsight, I should have expected it to lead to this. She must not have lived here long if she's asking about this now. If it didn't take a week with Isabella when she arrived, but that's Isabella. Superstitious, down to the last hair. Though it won't be too far off to think Marianne has only started thinking about this recently. She's working on the damn house herself. I must admit, even I'm curious now, despite living here for so many years and having so many chances to look it up before.
The Ermengarde mansion, yes?
Oh my god.
Yes, that one. And, the thing is, oh dear, this is a bad idea. You know what? Just forget I ever called you about this. It must have been the sunny weather. It's making me sick and see stupid things.
See things.
No, wait. It's alright, I don't mind.
There's a moment pause before she responds again. She's right in that this is a silly thing to talk about, especially between what I assume two people are pretty grounded on their beliefs with regards to these things. I won't blame her if she hesitates.
I can't believe I'm asking you about this.
Just ask!
It's fine. Why don't you just think of it as some form of research?
Well, alright. But after this, we're going to forget we ever had this talk.
My lips will be sealed. Now, what is it about the mansion?
Just, what do you know about it? The general gist. The place is past. What happened to the owners? Anything you can give me.
Let's see. To start off,
I do my best to give her a concise summary from the time the house was commissioned 400 years ago and who had built it, up to the point it got deserted after the last heir's death and the deed was passed on to the Ermengarde's nearest relatives. Frankly, if it weren't for those urban legends persisting, the house would have already faded into obscurity long ago. Demolished even. These are all nothing she probably hasn't heard before, yet there's dissatisfaction in her tone once I finish.
That's all there really is to it?
as far as I know. There's this little bit I forgot to mention about Lady Charlotte Ermengarde's death, but most of those are just theories.
What's the theory?
Aside from that, this is really everything we've been teaching all these years. Should there be anything more?
No mention of any other weird stuff? Other crazy stories? Or a letter of some sort?
My blood runs cold. Any warmth and comfort the tea I've drank has given me prior has instantly been drained out of me. The phone creaks softly as my light hold on it turns into a firm grip. This whole little bullshit is starting to turn into more than a coincidence.
None that I've heard or read of. What does a letter have to do with this?
Oh, no. It was just something I came across. Ignore it. Random thoughts, you know?
Don't ignore it.
By the way, I need to run. Thanks for answering my questions.
She's very different with different people. She ends the call abruptly with only a clipped goodbye, leaving my mind heavy with even more thoughts. The mood around my classroom has gone considerably denser in light of what little I've gleaned from that conversation. I don't think Marianne's lying about her intent. Her interest is genuine, I'd give her that. But she's left a lot of things out. I get the sense she's only asked because something's happened around her too. And if she hasn't mentioned the letter, I probably wouldn't have made that connection.
Just what the hell did we get ourselves into?
Of course, there's still a lot of confusing details in this. All of these are just assumptions. No concrete conclusion to be formed with what we have, and if we want to find out, we're really dealing with, I think Marianne's right. There might be something more to those stories. As absurd as it sounds, the very place that gave us that letter might tell us something beyond what we know. And tomorrow night I have a few hours of that chance at the housewarming party. Totally not an exciting thought. Since the place is privately owned now, I can just wander around. But it's enough reason to keep the dread at bay as I step out of the room, ready to put an end to this day. However, all those good vibes disappear into thin air when I run headfirst into Luke. There's really something in this man. Regardless of how much my opinion of him has changed over the span of a few hours, he simply blasts through every good impression people have of him without care or thought. He doesn't even need to open his mouth. His mere presence does it. In all honesty, I think he's the kind of guy only a mother can love.
You're still here?
Obviously. Who do you think's standing in front of you?
An ass.
Oh, come on, Daisy. You've done better than that. Losing your touch?
He talks like a game show host sometimes.
Luke, I don't have time for this. I'm heading home, and your face is the last thing I want to see before I leave. What do you want?
Immediately, I notice his hand, partly raised, almost poised for a knock. At a slight lift of an eyebrow, he quickly drops it into his side and turns to Kylie. She's standing a few steps away from him, holding her hands behind her back and toeing in at something on the floor with the tip of his shoe. Then he proceeds to make a vague gesture at me and the child. He resembles a fish flopping for air the way he moves his arms, though I think he's trying to urge her to speak up.
Munchkin, I thought you wanted to tell her something.
You do it, Teal.
This wasn't my idea, darling.
Don't worry. I won't tell Tia what you told me the other day. And this morning.
Luke exhales, rolling his eyes at the ceiling and maybe praying for the universe to grant him more patience. He knows losing battle when he sees one. He may act worse than a 5-year-old throwing a tantrum at times, but he's no match for an actual child. Nothing better than being served a dose of his own medicine, Once his frustration is promptly let out, he points a rude finger at me. I do my best to stare at the offending digit down, but I can't already hear the demand before it's even out of his lips.
You, come with us.
What makes you think I will?
Because little Rugrat here is upset and worried, and it's your bloody fault. I've no idea what happened this morning, but if you don't come with us, I won't be hearing the end of it from her. So do me a favor, Daisy, and just be glad I'm inviting you.
You're asking for a favor, and you can't be bothered to be polite? I don't know. It's been a really busy day for me. I kind of miss my couch.
Daisy, you just say yes.
A pause follows, almost too dramatic. Afterwards, his face twists into something between a grimace and a smile. As it happens, he appears like he's in a lot of physical pain. You'd think the man's getting an aneurysm by simply being polite.
Please?
Tia said it'll be his treat.
What? I said no such thing, Munchkin. I only agreed to this because you requested it. I'm under no obligation to feed her.
I promise I'll be quiet the next time I visit.
Oh, all right, but just one meal and make it the cheapest.
He and Ashton will get along famously on that department. On a different front, the offer for a free dinner does sound enticing, however half-heartedly given it is. Mostly because Kylie has wisely put it upon her puppy eyes, and by the second I find all my choices slipping away from me.
See, Miss Pink? It'll be fun. You don't have to feel sad anymore, okay?
Oh, well,
My mobile buzzes from my pocket, cutting me mid-sentence, and for a second I'm spared from the act of giving an answer I'll regret either way. Fishing the gadget out, I wave a hand at him and excuse myself, a disgruntled expression on Luke's face before I turn away. I'd be lying if I didn't say it didn't amuse me. He's as eager to be done with it as I am, but what can I do? Checking a message from Ashton shows up. Hey Becca, I'll be around Salem this evening. Need to meet someone in the area. I might have to drop by yours and Ilabella's place after. See ya. Just the usual. Unlike what he does to Zachary, Ashton has the decency to let us know when he's dropping by, or he's in the area for some business. From the way it's phrased, it sounds to be the latter. Either way, I'm glad he's at least aware of that boundary. Not that Isabella is ever going to let him leave the building unscathed. If he ever pulls the same stunt he does with the other man. I cringed to imagine what she'll do to him. Sighing, I slipped the gadget back in my pocket. But looking up to see Luke's utter impatience on his face, I now face a different dilemma. The two of them are still waiting, and knowing the kind of person Luke is, this is already a grand gesture of goodwill coming from him. All to please his godchild. His denials aside, it's easy to tell he's really fond of Kylie from his actions alone. I kinda hate to ruin that.
Well, Daisy, we're waiting here.
On the other hand, there's Ash. His message doesn't exactly imply he's going to wait, or he's expecting me to be there, but there are matters I hope to discuss with him in person, to put it simply. Oh, sweetie, it's a lost cause. He's with Isabella now. I have ensured it. Housewarming party matters. With inviting Isabella out of the question, I only have Zachary and Ashton. Although the former has already made it clear he'll be busy this week, and well, Ashton has been my first choice from the start. Even if he detests attending gatherings like this. It's company that counts. We can be miserable together. But that's the problem, isn't it? He hates them, and it's very likely his answer will be a flat no. I'd rather not hear that. If by some miracle he agrees to it, he'll probably be sulking the whole party. Not really a tough choice when you put it like that, still. A tough choice, but I have to pick one. Well, you're gonna go with Zach anyway, so it's not like you're gonna get Ashton to come with you. And you know, let the boy go. He's not interested. You poor thing. You poor thing. And I'm curious. Is this gonna get her killed? Is that gonna get her killed? No, because she still has to go to the party. Kylie? In the end, it's my own fondness for Kylie that wins out. Chances are I'll only have to endure this pressure. I only have to endure his presence for an hour or so. If it lasts more than that, I can make up an excuse. A sudden call from a friend or things to work on. It doesn't seem so bad when I think of the pros and cons. At best, it'll be a quiet dinner. At worst, it'll be an awkward affair we're both eager to be rid of. I'm leaning more on the latter happening, hoping for the former, of course.
Okay, but only because Kylie asked.
Kylie's face instantly lights up. For the third time today, she tackles me into a hug before pulling away and dragging me by the hand toward the building's exit.
That's alright. I'm sure Tio doesn't mind.
Mm-hmm.
He let me pick where we're going to eat. Don't worry, it's just close.
Luke follows closely behind, and perhaps out of some desire to keep the dead air away, I can't resist throwing in a quip.
Keep your distance. You better not do anything funny, you hear?
I'm the one who should keep my distance. May I remind you who approached me first and what you did right after?
Oh, I remember it clearly. But perhaps it's you who needs a reminder. You seem to have never learned your lesson. Care we give it another try?
Why are you so hell-bent on beating this man?
Maybe this time it'll stick.
Maybe this time it'll stick.
Okay, Cartman.
You think you're scary? I'll show you what's scary.
To my surprise, his tone lacks the usual sardonic note in it, and briefly I pause to stare at him. He quickly shuts his mouth right after and walks ahead of us. All talk and no trousers like the usual. And for the better part of our walk, except for Kylie's excited chatter, we don't speak. However, I have this strange feeling I'm already getting used to this kind of banter with him. I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing, and amidst this newfound friendship, dare I call it that, Ashton's message lays forgotten and abandoned in my pocket. Of all the places nearest to the school, Kylie picks this one, and waiting for the food to be served is as awkward as I've imagined it to be. Not the bad sort, though. The pleasant kind. Surprisingly, Luke's an okay bloke when he tries. When he tries. So long as you're willing to look past the tactless remarks, or we're not exchanging acerbic quips. It's clearly he's making an effort for this to be as fun as possible for the 6-year-old by being chattier, even going as far as to laugh when Kylie's story calls for it. It's an interesting thing to hear from the man. More than once I catch his frequent cheesed-off expression easing, whenever he looks at the girl.
And your friend? Did you make up with her?
Yep. She said she just saw something she didn't like. She didn't accept the jellies, though. She told me to give it to you instead. She knows you like the red ones, too.
Very well. Hand it to me later. I'll bring some of them home. I think your Tia would love to have some.
What a terrible liar. He says he dislikes the idea of having children of his own. It's easy to see some part of him genuinely wants them. What's stopping him? Once Kylie wanders to the nearby bookshelves after having lost interest in the conversation, however, we'll both revert back to silence. On our own, we have a little to talk about, aside from a few questions about the other here and there. At one point, he does veer on local politics and history. He's surprisingly versed with that, and he can hold a decent conversation without throwing a jibe? Nothing too personal is ever mentioned so far, though. It's too early for those, and besides, I don't like him enough to speak of every minute detail of my life. Better keep it strictly between the silence and the casual repartee. I have no idea how to pronounce half of these words. This whole thing already looks and feels wrong on so many levels. Quite sure he feels the same. So, when another bout of silence hits us and becomes too much, I've taken to finding something else to occupy myself. Toying with my mobile, turning it from hand to hand while we wait for our respective meals. But it will be a complete lie if I say I'm not waiting for some intervention. Something to pull me away from this place. Someone. Ashton's probably at Salem by this time, working on whatever business he has there. Maybe if I make up an excuse and leave now, I can still catch him?
Cut that out, it's distracting.
My hand stills, holding the gadget awkwardly between us, arrested mid-pass by his bored tone. He's been quiet for a long minute now, after complaining about how appalling the tea they're serving is here. Before that, he has whined about how uncomfortable the chair is and tasteless the decorations they have here. Previous to that, he's griped about how dull this place is compared to the one he frequents on the upper-class side of the city. Well, I'm sorry for being a bunch of peasants, your majesty. Figures he'll lose patience soon, having already grumbled about almost everything his eye can reach. It's just uncomfortable he's turned to me now.
Why don't you just look somewhere else?
I can't. If I turn elsewhere, I might end up looking at the bobfuck right behind us.
Bobfuck?
Bobfuck? Do I even want to ask?
I don't want to hear it. If it's coming out of his mouth, it can only be either rude or offensive. Regardless, he continues.
Everything looks good. But have you seen the face? True horror.
What is wrong with you? You know, I frown about this in practice, but that mouth needs to be washed out with a particularly potent soap. Preferably by your own mum.
A shame she isn't here,
For whatever reason, that puts an end to that talk right away. He returns to watching his godchild, who was fond of a particularly interesting picture book, and is now poring over it while I turn back to my mobile. Still no message. Would it kill him to at least send a message? Check if I were home? Meanwhile, Luke's silence lasts all but 10 seconds.
What is it with the damn mobile? Are you on a curfew?
He's got the immature act down pat, I'll give him that. Seriously, how old is this guy? Has he somehow been deprived of affection during childhood?
And what is it to you? I don't think it's any of your business what I do with it.
It is my business, all right? 1, I'm the one paying here. 2, I'm being forced to eat dinner in a place this stuffed and noisy. Lastly, it's been 10 minutes, the food isn't here, and I'm hungry. What you're doing with the mobile is annoying and distracting, when the least you could do is keep things entertaining while I suffer.
No. Granted, being on your phone while spending time with another person, regardless, is a bit rude, but it's not her responsibility to keep you entertained.
That's your problem? Shouldn't you be more worried about how this entire affair looks to other people?
Oh, I didn't realize this was one. You move fast, Daisy. You could have informed me first, you know.
You're a pig.
Had I known, I would have taken you someplace nicer. Certainly the kind with better food and plenty of good wine.
Why did I ever think this was a good idea? Did it ever occur to you how inappropriate this might look to everyone?
Why should I care? It's only inappropriate if you make it out to be.
Why do you talk like that?
Relax. I won't do anything to make your boyfriend angry. He doesn't even need to know we dined out. It'll be our dirty little secret.
Don't. Yeah.
He's not my boyfriend.
The words come out with more force than I've intended. By the time I realize my slip up, his lips are already spread in a sneer. Hate slowly crawls in my face.
Oh, so there is someone. You're so easy to read.
Briefly, his eyes search my face. I have no idea what he sees, nor do I care to know. But in the next second, he barks out a laugh, displaying his amusement without reserve to everyone within earshot. In that moment, I know I've flipped a switch in him somewhere, and I've lost my chance to deny his assumptions. Do I even want to? Isn't that the reason why I've been so focused on my mobile, waiting for another message from him? For a reason to dump this awkward meeting to go after him?
Look how mottled you are. Now the nickname makes more sense. Shy Miss Pink and her cute little crush. The color suits you, by the way. It matches the hair.
It's not a crush.
Classic denial. But in reality, you want him to be yours. And your every move is made to make him notice you. In fact, you don't want him to see you with another man in a non-professional capacity. Because he might misinterpret it.
Look at you, being all observant.
The same thing goes for you, doesn't it? Bloody, yours is even worse. What about your wife? Aren't you concerned she might misinterpret this?
Daisy, just because we tied the knot doesn't mean we have to be joined at the hip at every single opportunity.
Don't be ridiculous. Why else would you marry her if you don't want to be with her for the rest of your lives?
I think you misunderstand.
Because, Daisy, she also has other things she can do with her life and friends to spend time with. Granted, I don't like some of them, and I have a few of my own she utterly dislikes. But wifey doesn't have to know my every move. Nor do I hers. Do you know how boring that would be? To be with the same person for all hours of the day, losing sleep over the mere fact they're not with you?
I mean, there's truth to that. You know, when you're in a relationship, you still need to be independent.
Or putting everything you have aside to please them? To have your whole world revolve around one person?
Aren't you just mistaking that for something else? Unlike you, there are other people here who don't share the same jaded outlook you have. Don't lump everyone together just because it didn't work out for you.
And you, my dear, are unexpectedly naive.
What's so naive about it? If you love each other, wouldn't you want to always see them, be with them, to have them focus solely on you?
No, I don't want all that kind of attention. Go do your own thing.
Maybe you haven't been loved enough.
Oh, it's that kind of thing for you, isn't it? The love is eternal, love is a strong emotion shite. A starry-eyed girl pining for a dashing Prince Charming? What's next? Romantic confessions of love? A grand wedding on the beach? Dozens of spawns running around in some picturesque home in the suburbs?
Spawns.
How quaint. Are you also expecting it's going to be sunshine and rainbows after? A happily ever after?
It's not always happy.
Please.
What? I never once said... and is all of that such a bad
Woman, I've been married for 7 years, and I'm telling you, it's far from what you have in your pretty red head. Tell me, how long has this song and dance been going for you and your man? Maybe I am mistaken.
Years. 84 years. Averting my eyes from him is all I managed to do. What does his mere 7 years have compared to the 17 I've had with you? I haven't had any years with Ash. You bitch in denial. He's actually been married with a person for almost a decade. You've kind of just been near a person for almost 2 decades. It's not the same. It's laughable he thinks those two things are even comparable. Exactly, they're not. Ash and I may have never moved past the boundaries of friendship, like what I'm hoping for years, but what we have isn't something anyone can scoff at. It's nothing. What you have is nothing. I've always been by his side, endured everything with him. I know him better than anyone. This girl needs to read some manga. The childhood friend never wins. No matter what this man, this complete stranger, says, I know there will always be a place for me beside him. Yeah. As you guard the door while him and Isabella do it. And yet...
Come on, Daisy, that shouldn't be too hard. 3, 5, 8, 10, 20.
His words easily seep into my heart like sharp daggers, gradually picking apart everything I've ever been sure of. Despite myself, and doubts resurface and my defense crumble right in front of my eyes. It's no wonder he sees through me, and as expected, he ridicules it. Restrained, low and rumbling, a sharp sound striking the air around us amidst the murmur of people, the soft notes of music playing over our heads. His shoulders shake when his mirth becomes too much even for him. He reaches up a hand and passes over his face as if to hold his glee close to him.
Lordy bullocks, this is just brilliant. Oh, mother, why do I always keep running into these things? This day couldn't get any better. I think I'm gonna need a stiff drink after this.
He dissolves into another peal of laughter, but when it subsides, what he has for me are more words. Scathing each of them. The urge to run from here has never been this strong.
Is everything you said how you plan to act, if that man of yours ever ends up with you? Cling to him? Put him on a bloody pedestal? Let him become the center of your universe? Although with how long this seems to be going on, I think you've already done so. Marriage will just be icing on the top.
Ooh, he's hitting the nail.
Like some sort of reward for you, isn't it? For being a good, patient, loyal little girl all this time, never looking at another man. You must have been having a grand time with someone pining over him this long. I'm a little envious, to be honest. Maybe also a little surprised he hasn't suffocated from all your attention yet.
Laugh all about it if you want. It's not like you'll ever understand.
Luke falls silent. The ridicule in him is gone in an instant, and his eyes meet mine, sharp and imposing. A challenge, but I hold against him with the same intensity, because if there is something I won't let his opinion trample on, is this. What does he know? However, he's the first one who looks away, focusing his eyes back to where Kylie is, and for a moment, I believe I've won. Until he draws his breath in and turns back to me. The words he drops next, though hushed, hang heavily in the distance between us.
You're right. I won't. But I do know not to mistake love for obsession, woman. They are not the same thing.
Truth. It rattles. Out of everything he said tonight, this is the one thing that twinges my heart. Maybe it's in the manner he delivers it, the lack of conceit in his posture, or an underlying insult in the tone he takes. The remark is not meant to cut, merely to express a simple truth. This time, it's him who holds gaze against mine. Another unspoken challenge, and I realize that if this happened minutes before, I'd already have an equally searing retort at the tip of my tongue. There's none. But the anger is there, ringing at my insides, prodding at the uncertainties I've long kept. Isn't it enough? We've had the long years we've been together. We've had memories. Whenever he needs me, until other people came in between us, I've always been there. The one there. It's not enough, dear. That dedication and loyalty should mean something, shouldn't it? Nah, you gotta be assertive. He doesn't view you in that way because you haven't made yourself viewable in that way. I've always been sure of it. And that one day, he'll see it for what it is. In spite of that, in this minute, under this man's scrutiny, my own heart wavers. Now I struggle to find the words. I don't know. I mean, you don't need to answer. However, those are for me to ponder on. This arse doesn't need to hear them. And neither is he entitled to them, just because he dished out some profound sounding life wisdom no one asked for. So I look away, hoping my own silence will be enough to answer for him. And it is, for a moment. Up until warm, furious tears prickled behind my eyes, stinging, begging for release, along with every other frustration this dumb talk has built up in me. All because of this man. I hate him. I hate the fact that he has to be the one to see me in this sorry state. I'm already expecting another bob from him when its expression shifts. Except he panics. In the span of 3 seconds, his expressions change from indifferent to concerned to utter panic. It would probably have been funny if I weren't so irked by the sight of his glycate? Bastard? What?
Hey, are you crying? Are you going to cry? Stop that right now, woman, or I'll...
Yes, this is how you can console someone.
Will you shut up?
He clams up almost before I could finish. Whether this is due to sudden force in my voice or how I look, I pretend not to think of it. Seems like a deer caught in headlights with the way he's making himself smaller in his seat. But I'm still pissed. I'm tired, and if I can't punch him, I can at least scream at him.
You're an annoying bag of dick, you know that? If I hear another word from you, I'm sewing that bloody mouth shut myself!
It does do the trick. Not to the effect I've hoped, but the moment I've snapped at him, the stinging at the back of my eyes melts away, and the strange calm overcomes me. A fragile thing when found in the middle of a busy coffee shop. Nevertheless, it's appreciated, considering it doesn't last, immediately broken by the very person that put me in this state, a few awkward pats to my shoulder. Done twice. Thrice. And another. Until my patience runs out again and I'm pulling out the book from my bag, raising it threatening over his head. It'll surely dent his skull if I slam it down at this height. Part of me wants to see that, but I restrain myself. He has the good sense to recoil, though. Shortly, he shrinks back into his seat and waves his hand in front of him in a gesture of surrender.
Watch that book, woman! I already warned you about your little threats. You don't want to see my brand of angry!
Then keep your hands to yourself!
Alright, that's it. People these days, I swear you treat them nicely and this is where it gets me.
You're the last person I'd ever want to comfort me, even if we're the only 2 remaining people on Earth. Don't flatter yourself.
Okay, have it your way, Daisy.
And stop calling me Daisy! I have a name, you know!
He mutters something inaudible under his breath, although afterwards he doesn't say anything further. For the next minute, he simply contents himself with making a mess out of the paper napkins, folding them into clear shapes without any clear intent, before crumpling them in his hand when he loses interest and dumping them in a small pile in front of him. The waiter serves our meal soon enough and Kylie makes her way back to our table. But before I could take a single bite, he mutters something. The words spoken in the same tone he used since morning, all under his breath whenever the honest part of him would show. Despite my rather confusing opinion of the man, I stop short of shoving food in my mouth to look at him. His eyes are on his food as he speaks, busying himself with cutting a portion of meat on his plate. But what comes out of him only rings true against my ears above the din of the coffee house.
For what it's worth, Rebecca, I didn't ever think that's all there is to you. Why else would I leave my own goddaughter in your care if you're just some lovesick woman?
I don't know, is that supposed to make anyone feel better? He spears a piece of his food, pops in his mouth, and that's it. The whole day with this man, and I still can't figure what his deal is. But for what it's worth as well, I don't think he's an entirely bad guy. The rest of our meal slips by in silence afterward. Aside from Kylie's occasional chatter, the whole dinner goes without another word, exchanged between the two of us. Somehow we managed to make it through the whole thing without triggering another tension-riddled conversation. A good thing, perhaps. One, because Kylie's sitting in front of us, and two, I probably wouldn't be able to hold a proper conversation with my mind heavy with thoughts. We depart from the coffee house just as the evening starts to thin out. The same wordless silence fills our short walk back to the school. Except for when Luke gestures at a nearby flower shop and enters it without waiting for Kylie and I. He emerges minutes later carrying a bouquet of daffodils, with the same softened expressions back on his face. Unlike the previous one, he tucks this one away almost as soon as he looks up at us. Moment he's not willing to share. My confusion, he merely answers with a shrug and continues walking.
For someone important.
I accept it for what it is, if only because he doesn't owe me an explanation. It does leave more questions about him, each one baffling as the previous one. Those are the last words spoken this evening before we head our own ways. Up until I arrive home, I still can't understand him. Here, however, a whole different set of questions await me. And much like everything today, it comes with the littlest of things. A lone note greets me upon reaching my unit's door, its edge fluttered lightly against the faint warm breeze passing through the small complex. My hand stops short of twisting the knob as I stare at it, though I don't make any moves to take it. Ashton's neat script lines the surface. Dropped by earlier. You weren't around. Any ideas where Scaredy Cat is? I couldn't contact her. Inspector Abigail has a few questions. LPD stuff. Something about her dead coworker. Anyway, let me know how the two of you have been doing. I'll see you later. Winky face. The message he left on the short and straight to the point, but not without underlining a hint of friendship. He's looking for Isabella, apparently. Something about LPD's investigation of her coworker's death. But in the end, its formal tone by checking on me. Us. Any other day, the former part of this message will likely prod the piercing envy I've been holding, while the latter will probably send my heart aflutter. Little things from him that I want to mean something more. Yet this time, only guilt fills me and my eyes briefly sift toward Isabella's empty unit. Luke's words repeat inside my head as I do so.
For what it's worth, Rebecca, I didn't ever think that's all there is to you.
Blech.
Why else would I leave my own goddaughter in your care if you're just some lovesick woman?
Have I always been like this?
Yes. This selfish? Yes! You're so selfish! In truth, I intended to call Ash after that dinner, if I didn't catch him here, invite him to that party like I've planned. There's time, and he's still probably awake around this hour. But my hands won't move, and perhaps it's for the better. Until I've had some time to think this through, it'll be best if I distance myself from those I've been clinging tightly to. Find a different perspective and see things from what they are. With a soft sigh, I reach for the note and crumple it onto my hand. The knob twists open and with much ease when I enter this time. Maybe after some introspect, it'll be easier. For tomorrow I have that woman and the mansion to worry about. The night wears on without further incident, despite the great number of thoughts swimming inside my head. Come morning, there's only a hush, strange sort of stillness, unlike the ones greeting me every morning. This one's uneasy, tight with anticipation, like a string stretched thin, merely waiting for the proper time to snap. Granted, it doesn't make my day any less pleasant, but the edge is there. And as expected, the second I step out of my flat, it comes apart, broken by the voices of two squabbling adults echoing from the floor below. The quiet was nice while it lasted. Shame.
What the hell were you thinking?
I wasn't. Ow! Could you let go?
Hey, it's Isabella. Not a few seconds later, they both ascended the stairs, with Ashton pulling Isabella by her wrist. She struggles, as she should, but his hold on her remains firm. Freeing herself means having to draw blood, as she attempts to pry his hand off with her other one, or using unnecessary force to push herself away. Neither of which is better than the other. One could potentially end in an accident, while the other means having to hurt him physically. She has the good sense to realize, at least, however, it doesn't take the desperate edge in her voice when she answers Ashton's temper with her own. So, they go on, none the wiser to my presence.
Do you have any idea how much trouble you could get in?
That's why I'm asking you for help.
Is this what you've been doing these past 3 days? Because this doesn't make your case convincing, Isabella.
Rose died, Ash.
I know. Every single person in Luxburg knows. It's on the damn news. But that doesn't mean...
People are missing. Some of those are my friends. And BRC's just covering it all up.
You can't just barge into my office and expect me to do anything about it, right off the bat. This isn't a children's game, Isabella. We have procedures. We have to follow protocol. There's red tape all over this case for a reason.
Yes, this game I think is rated M. Or at least teen. Not for children.
We sure as hell don't investigate things just because some stupid letter spooked us.
Ash, you have to believe me this time. If we don't do anything right now, more people will...
It's been a whole week. This stupid letter prank is getting old real fast. I'm sick of it.
Yo. It's obviously not a prank.
It was funny the first time, not so much now.
You're the only one that can help me with this, Ash. Even Rebecca won't.
All right, you two are awfully loud. What's going on here?
Both of their heads snap up almost in unison, a displeased frown on each of their faces. But this is a necessary interruption. What can they do? People still in their units have already taken interest in their commotion, with some taking a peek behind their curtains while others are bold enough to creak open their doors, if only slightly. If they don't keep it down, pretty soon the landlady will show up. Getting a reprimand from her is the last thing I want to happen, first thing on a Friday morning, even if it's hardly my fault.
Well, if you want to continue this, you two better do it elsewhere. You're disturbing other people.
Don't worry, we're done here.
No, we aren't. Becca, I looked it up. I called them. I visited some of them and...
Which you shouldn't have done in the first place. Isabella, you're going to create more problems for us with what you're doing. A team has already been assigned to it. Leave it to us.
Your precious team is looking at it the wrong way. Becca, it's not just Rose. There are others.
That last bit strikes a chord, prods strongly at a memory. At that vicious smile already etched deeply inside my mind. The image appears clear enough that, at the mere mention of it, I stumble on my own question.
What do you mean?
The letter, Rebecca! It's not...
It's nothing. If there's really something going on because of that dumb letter, none of us would be standing here. We've all read it, haven't we? But Rebecca's alive, Zach's alive, I'm alive. So for the last time, this isn't a curse.
You don't know how long it takes.
There's a murderer on the loose, and your co-workers happen to be the victims. Give it a rest, Isabella. It's too early for this shit.
Don't you think that's too much for a coincidence?
Not so much. Most serial killers follow a pattern. I'll tell you about it some other time. And anyway, coincidence or not, the point is, civilians like you aren't supposed to get involved. You're putting yourself in danger.
I wasn't chasing after.
Will the both of you slow down and stop arguing for a minute? What's this about your coworkers, Belle?
Becca, please don't tell me now you believe this shit.
Sure, in a heartbeat I'll agree with Ashton. That's how it's always been, besides having a very good point. Really, they're the very same ones he'll make every time I ask too many questions. But the fact of the matter is, what he wants to hear from me right now is far from what I've been sensing these past few days. It doesn't matter what Isabella believes, or I believe on our own. Something odd has been happening around me, and that letter she picked up is at the heart of this. But however I respond, the question in their faces, only one of them will be pleased with it. Be honest. Ashton in particular won't be happy to hear it. You need to break away from Ashton, man. Imagine the look of his face. Doesn't take too much effort. His entire posture shifts the moment my reluctance shows. Shoulders tensing, brows furrowing against gaining a sharp edge. He's already bracing himself from the disappointment. And it will be a disappointment. Not in a million years did I ever believe I'll be saying this either.
I might have seen her. The woman Belle's been telling us about. The one she said she saw in the attic.
Both of them stare at me like I've grown an extra head, and for a moment Ashton looks as if he's about to have a fit. A pause treads at his heels, a silence thick enough one can almost hear a pin drop.
You're kidding, right?
Nope.
Do I look like I'm joking?
Really, Becca? Not funny.
Ash, I'm not lying. Why would I lie about this?
Oh, it's not fun when no one believes you.
It's been this way since the film fest. The past few days have been really odd since we read that letter.
Or maybe you're all just feeling under the weather.
I'm not sick. Don't you think I'd know that by now?
Becca, you're starting to sound like Scaredy Cat. Give me a break.
Why don't you?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, you two.
Isabella's voice cuts sharply through the conversation, abruptly putting an end to the brewing argument.
It's all my fault. This is all my fault. I was only hoping I could fix this before any of you. I'm sorry for dragging you all into this.
She breathes in, deep, steadying, and in a moment, something falls behind her eyes as she looks away.
I'll fix this. I promise.
A quiet resolve. The same one I saw in her that night from 3 days ago. But this time, it burns brighter. Even Ashton wavers at the sight. When she looks at him straight in his eyes, the gaze unflinching, gradually his grip on her wrist loosens.
Belle, there's nothing to fix. The problem is...
Just this once, Ash.
Her voice, though small and lacking any force, stops him. Along with it, every sound, every noise dies around us, a hush descending, as if the world is waiting for her words.
You don't have to come with me. But if I don't do anything, I am going to regret it.
She lays a hand on top of his. Gentle, pleading, almost intimate if one does not consider the circumstances we found ourselves in.
Please.
Ashton will never tell a soul, will never admit it even to himself, but it is in that short second that his own resolve breaks. The moment the hard edge in his eyes soften and he relinquishes his hold on her, letting his hands fall limply to his side. Wordlessly, Isabella steps back and runs off, leaving only a muttered thanks and a small, lackluster smile. Only after the last of her footsteps fade away does Ashton move, breaking the silence with one of his sharp exhales before reaching up to pinch the bridge of his nose, in a gesture of frustration and surrender.
Did you really have to tell her that?
Hey, if I don't, we're all gonna die.
What do you want to hear from me then? That everything's fine?
No, I want all of you to stop putting these ideas in her head. None of it is helping. Never mind. Don't worry about her. I'll bring her back here.
He's already poised to leave when my own instincts take over. I reach for him, gripping his elbow with the same unyielding grip, the action prompted by voices whispering in the back of my mind. He's already made it clear he's not going to believe me, but he deserves a word of caution. Who knows where all of this will take us, how all of this will end. He should be caught off guard, belief notwithstanding.
Ash, I know you don't believe in those things she's saying. And you know me. I'm less inclined to believe in those things as you do. But I've seen something. There's something strange going on here. You don't have to buy it. If you don't want to listen to me, fine. But please, try to hear her out.
No, Butters.
It's bad enough that Isabella goes off like this without telling anyone. I'm just worried something might happen to her if she keeps at it. Talk to her, okay?
As if she trusts me enough for that.
Doesn't the fact that she approached you first about this, instead of me, already say a lot?
A different kind of trust, granted implicitly, and never spoken, sometimes too big, too fragile to last. He falls silent for a long moment as he turns it over in his mind. In the end, all he manages to offer is a small nod before he departs, and a promise to at least listen to her without the teasing or the jibes. A favor for me, and the least he could do for her. This is as much as I can do for him as well, until I've understood what's happening myself. Tonight, hopefully, where this all started will provide the answers I'm looking for. Except the whole thing is off to a bad start, and all of a sudden, whatever Isabella claims, dwelling in this mansion becomes the least of my concerns. It looks like it's party time! This chapter is longer than I thought it would be. I was trying to do it all in one sitting, but it's not gonna happen. Oh my god, this game is gonna take forever to finish, but I will finish it. I have so many games I have to finish. I didn't want to end up with like a whole bunch of unfinished games on this channel. So I will go back and finish a lot of the stuff I started. But thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up if you're new to the channel. Don't forget to hit subscribe and ring the bell so you know when I post, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye!